21, and the question is how important are exports to the UK economy? Well, personally, and most economists would agree with this, exports are absolutely vital to the UK economy, simply because in the nice decade the whole economy was run upon consumption and investment, and eventually that leads to consumer debt, trade debt, budget debt, and this is an unsustainable way of growing. And if you do have a trade deficit, which we have done for over 30 years, eventually you will have to end up by borrowing money, and eventually that will lead to a collapse in the exchange rate and all sorts of other problems. So exports are really important to an economy. Okay, so this essay comes up and it says, well, how important are exports to the recovery in the UK economy? Well, AD is equal to C plus I plus G plus X minus M. We don't want to run our economy anymore consumer debt and government debt, as we did in the nice decade, 1997 to 2007, so exports are really important. Then just go very quickly through the theory, which is we increase exports, multiple accelerator takes off, an increase in exports will lead to a rise in national income, the size of which will depend upon the multiplier. Then we've got the accelerator, which is a small change in demand, could lead to a much larger change in investment. That will then lead to an increase in AD. The UK still has a negative output gap, so therefore it's unlikely to create demand pull inflation. And also, if we just continue to try and stimulate our economy either through consumption or government spending, if we do it via government spending, that will lead to a rise in national debt. We'll have to pay more interest on that debt. There will also be the crowding out effects, because the government will need to sell bonds to pay for that debt. Therefore, the private sector will have fewer funds. So hence, it's much better if we can increase X rather than increasing G. It will also actually improve 3 out of 4 government objectives, because it will increase AD. Increasing AD will lead to a rise in economic growth. That will also lead to a rise in employment. It could potentially once again increase prices, but this is unlikely because we have a negative output gap. And at the same stage, of course, it will lead to an improvement in the UK balance of payments. It could also lead, if we increase investments via the accelerator, that could also lead to more investment, and that's also really good because the LRAS will shift outwards. And if you go all the way back to lesson 51, the importance of that cannot be underestimated. However, an increase in exports won't totally improve the UK economy. We still need strong supply side economics, which is a bit of a weird thing to say because we're probably only going to get an increase in exports if our supply side is really good. But anyway, however, in your conclusion you can say, well, of course it's really important to the recovery of the UK economy, but we're also going to need supply side economics and lower corporation tax, more labour market flexibility, maybe follow some of the policies of the IOD which have already been outlined. And it may also be the case that we still need to increase AD if there is still a negative output gap. So that is an essay, that is why exports are so important. It's in the government's plan for growth. It's the one thing that's not happening in the UK so far, and hence in the year 2013 we had a trade deficit.